Hi everyone. This video is part 2 of a 4-part video series that I am doing in honor of and in memory of the September 11th, 2001 attacks. Now this year is 2021, as you know, and it is the 20th anniversary of the September 11th attacks. I am doing the 4-part video series. 3 of the videos are consisting of book reviews about September 11th. So I've already completed part 1. Part 1's video was focused on a children's graphic novel which was published this year, and it was written and illustrated by youth author Don Brown. I selected that book because when I was 12 years old, that is when the attacks happened. So I remember it from a child's perspective. And I shared some of my story about my fear of planes and how the attacks had a very profound impact on my life and the lives of those around me. So for part 2, I wanted to focus mostly on photography. And the books that I have selected for this video are the September 11th Photo Project, which was edited by Michael Feldsha, and New York, September 11th by Magnum Photographers. The reason I selected books that were photography books was because a lot of people's memories of September 11th came through the media, came through photographs that they saw in the newspaper. It also came from the video footage that was shown on the news at the time. Many people watched on live television as the second plane hit the second tower. There were also images that brought people hope, such as the firefighters rescuing people from the rubble and people helping each other. There were other images that caused a lot of controversy, such as the image of the falling man. That caused a lot of controversy, and people did not want that in the newspaper, and it really was never printed again. So photography has always had a way of getting through to people. Photography usually doesn't consist of any words. It just gets to the core of your soul. I'm going to be sharing in this video the similarities and differences between these two books. And I'm going to go back and forth alternating between both of them. I don't know if I can do it one at a time. So let's talk about this first book, the September 11th Photo Project. This book was published, I believe, in the year 2002. And it consists of photography from people mostly people who were in New York City when the terrorist attacks occurred, or when the attacks occurred. And the photographs in this book consist of photos that have captions, because sometimes they would write a caption to go along with the photo or write a letter and tell the story of the photo. They weren't professional photographers. Some were professional photographers. Other people were not professionals. They were amateurs. It was used from all different types of cameras, all different types of footage. Some people just left words, and their images formed a beautiful photo gallery in Soho. So at the beginning of this book, it says, during the 3 months that the September 11th Photo Project was on display at a donated gallery in New York City's Soho neighborhood, more than 40,000 people visited the space to view the photos and read the words of the project's contributors. The photos in this book, selected from the submissions of more than 500 photographers, young and old, amateur and professional, give a permanent voice to those who made the September 11th Photo Project what it is, an attempt to build a new understanding from the ashes of what has been. And right here it gives an explanation. These are some of the photographs that were placed in the gallery. It says, the September 11th Photo Project is an open forum for display of photographs and words in response to the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001. The project began as a grassroots effort to collect material from anyone who wished to participate. By allowing people to bear witness to the expression and pain of others, the project hoped to promote understanding of the tragedy on a human level and to begin a healing process. And these are the people who are responsible for the gallery. It has them listed here. The reason I connected with this book was because, as I stated before, I live in St. Louis, Missouri, and a lot of people, when they think of like Missouri or St. Louis, they might think of Ferguson and the what occurred in Ferguson, like the lynching that happened in Ferguson. Actually, there are a couple lynchings in Ferguson, but particularly the one of Michael Brown. And from that tragedy, I do remember the art and different things that came out of the tragedy. People trying to express their feelings and emotions about what was going on through art and creating murals on buildings that had been destroyed or burned down. They were creating murals on boards and everything. So that's what this reminded me of. I had a personal connection with this due to my experience in Ferguson. The second book is actually compiled by professional photographers, New York, September 11th, by Magnum Photographers. So it was a group of professional photographers. They had been a company for a really long while. I want to say they formed in I don't know if it was the 40s or the 50s. I honestly cannot remember. Oh, it says it was founded in 1947 by 4 photographers. They created Magnum to reflect their independent natures as people and photographers, an idiosyncratic mix of reporter and artist that continues to define Magnum, emphasizing not only what is seen, but also the way one sees it. The agency is a cooperative owned by its members. It has offices in Paris, New York, London, and Tokyo. Magnum currently has a total of 62 photographers. 46 are full members and 16 are nominees, associates, contributors, or correspondents. So what I thought was interesting about this book was it was actually published in 2001. It was published before the end of the year, not long after the September 11th, 2001 attacks. And I think it came together that quickly because they already had, the means to place it together in a book. They probably already had books of photography that they could just print on demand. And they already had professional photographers, so they could compile it together and create a book. And this book, published in 2001, the proceeds from it went to something called the New York Times 9/11 Media Fund. And it says the New York Times has established this fund to collect contributions to relieve the suffering of families struck by death or injury in the World Trade Center disaster, both civilians and rescue workers. The Times will cover all administrative costs, so every dollar contributed will go for relief. Funds will be distributed by 7 social service agencies and 3 foundations representing the uniformed services. So this book had its own purpose, and it helped those who were closely affected by the tragedy. And that is why I thought that was a very fascinating book. So let's start with the September 11th project. I want to say something. It says more. Hold on. Okay. More than moving images or unadorned photographs, images combined with text have emerged as a powerful medium for understanding the atrocity on a human level. The still photograph, in contrast, gives us time to reflect upon what we are seeing. So with some of these, if you look closely, you will see that there are words pinned underneath some of the photographs. I'm going to go through here and show you some of the photographs that stood out to me. So right here it says, on 9/11, God was asleep. Somebody had written this on, I don't know what type of metal it was, but it says, on 9/11/2001, God was asleep. And somebody wrote underneath there as a response, it says, my friend, we were, God help this world. It says, my friend, we were asleep. God help this world. And I noticed that a couple of times throughout this book, like somebody would write something and then other people would write a response underneath. That's kind of similar to this wall that I saw one day when I was walking down Cherokee Street. There was a wall talking about race relations and police brutality, and people had their own opinions and were responding to other people on the wall. That's what I thought of when I saw it. Another example of a photograph that did a response to a response. One was, doesn't an eye for an eye make two blind people? And the person wrote, no. Then, of course, there's like photos of the tower on fire before they crashed. There's a photo of a little girl. She was 7, and she was telling her story about what she experienced on September 11th. She said, my school bus didn't show up today. My dad and I waited for a long time until 8:30. Then we went back to our apartment to call the bus company. And then while we were waiting for a call back, there was a big explosion. It blew our curtains out, our windows. Me and my mom and dad ran out onto the terrace, and we saw a really big hole in the World Trade Center with lots of smoke and fire. We started to pray for the people in that tower, and then there was another big explosion. After that, my parents said, this is not an accident. I was very scared, but I was very glad the bus didn't come, and I was home with my parents because my school is close to the World Trade Center. That day was very scary, but it was much better being at home with my mom and dad. And her name is Nayala, 7 years old. This picture was taken on September 11th at 3:30 p.m. This is her, the little girl. Some people had images. This is hard. I'm going to take this out. Some people had images of the towers before, or like when they were initially completed in the 1970s. This is an old photograph of the towers. It's pictures of people crying, just sitting there crying. They don't know what to do. They're just sitting there. I stated earlier this month that I wanted to buy very many photography books because sometimes when I'm reading a history book, I can't connect sometimes to the story that I'm reading. But when I see an image of it, it's something about that image that really captures me, that makes me feel that person's pain or that person's happiness just looking at a photograph. Another thing is sometimes people will say an event did not happen when it did, and the photograph usually proves that the event happened. And this is before Photoshop and a lot of deep photo manipulation that occurred. But I feel like most photographs hold some type of bit of truth, even if they're edited a little bit. Most historical photographs tell you the story as is in the photograph. There's somebody that did a drawing of Jesus, I think, and all of the souls that died in the tower going up to heaven. That's one photo that stood out to me too. Then people running. People, they don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. If they go here, will there be an explosion over here? If they go on the bridge, will there be an explosion on the bridge? People didn't know what to do. And some of them couldn't respond because they were in such a traumatic state of shock. They basically lost mobility. They were staring at people. Another is a photograph of this man's brother's shoes. Right here. With the dust on the towers. And in the shoebox, somebody wrote, his clothes became shining, exceedingly white, like snow, such as no launderer on earth can whiten them. I looked for you, my union brother. I looked for you, my baby brother. I love you, Matthew Diaz, your brother Michael. Oh, that's so sad. Oh my God. That's what I remembered. Just I looked for you. I searched for you, like, because there were people searching. They didn't know what happened to their relatives. Were their relatives in a hospital? Were their loved ones in a hospital? Were they transported somewhere else? Were they underneath the rubble? Were they trapped in the rubble? Were they killed? They didn't know. Even like how they died. Did they jump? Were they there when the towers fell down? Like, just not knowing was the worst part of it. And especially after the towers crashed and they had already gotten out most of the survivors, all that was left were just bodies. But some of the bodies couldn't be identified. They were just parts of a person. They had to use discernment to see like which one was a human being. Just very tragic. Then this photograph. Our grief is not a cry for war. As I stated in my first video, I mentioned that after the attacks, there was a lot of attacks on Muslims. There were people saying we should go to war. There were people who were being very super patriotic, and if you weren't being super patriotic, then you were anti-American. I remember this from when I was a child. And there was a division between going to war and not going to war. There were some people that really, really wanted to go to war. And there were others that were like, no, this is too much. Like, I don't want to go to war. And I was one of the people that were just like, look, I'm just done with death. And I just don't want anybody to die. I just didn't want anybody to die. That's really why I didn't want us to go to war when I was a child. Because I didn't, at the time, I really didn't believe in the military. I didn't believe in fighting. I just wanted people to be happy. So that was just me as a child. And this is showing the towers coming down in phases. But as I was saying, let me show you the photographs that really stood out to me. This one. On the other side, this man is holding his grandbaby. Look at the look on his face. He looks so disturbed. The caption is, in the plain of Shamoli, north of Kabul, Baba John on the road carrying his grandson to the hospital 25 kilometers away. He told me he had to leave his village 3 times in 4 years because of Taliban advances. The 3rd time, the Taliban destroyed his village and burned his food supply. Baba John, or is it Han? I can't remember. It's Jan. Asked me, what do the Taliban want? They even destroyed the roots of my vines. Do they want to exterminate the Afghan people? And this is Shamoli, Afghanistan, October 2001. That's why I mentioned in my first video that as far as politics, I only separate it into two groups. You are either a psychopathic / sociopathic crew member, or you were an innocent human being just trying to live your daily life and you ended up as collateral for some type of sociopath, psychopathic blend or combo. And when I think of that, I think of this man. All he wants to do is live. All he wants to do is get help for his family, and he can't. They're even destroying the roots of his vine, so he'll just leave this earth with nothing. He can't even provide for his own family. Right here it says, Stephen Shalash, Department of Sanitation, and John Gray, Department of Sanitation. The reason these photos stood out to me was just the look on their face. I can't even describe the looks on their faces. I can't tell if it's just disbelief or anger or just they're overwhelmed. There's also people with tattoos. But this is one, Gone But Not Forgotten, 9/11/2001. And this girl has her American flag, her eagle, the towers, all of that. I think it's a pretty neat tattoo. The next one, I don't know where this is. Oh, okay, never mind. It says, Gina, I remember you. I had a crush on you. Rest in peace. I don't know who Gina is, but I thought that was a very touching message. Maybe she was in the towers. I don't know. It says, on September 11th, plus the days that follow, I didn't know what to do with myself. I was filled with so much sorrow, so many mixed emotions. I started taking pictures because I felt the need to document what was going on, but a part of me also wanted to experience the events more, to feel more deeply in order to reach a level of acceptance, understanding. I was hoping that the images will help me sort through it. Deborah Sukman Ziola. And these are some of the photographs that she took. So there's this person, they wrote on a cup, I miss you, Mom. Then right over here it looks like a white man and a black man. I think the white man is Jewish because he's wearing, what do you call it? I can't remember. And he's wearing a head covering. And there's somebody taking a photograph of them. They're writing together. They must be writing some type of message of peace. And then it says, there's a sign. When I grow up, I remember this because this quote came to my head. When I grow up, I want to rebuild the World Trade Center, but it will be 2 stories tall in a school, max age 7. So that's the child's protest poster. Very disturbing. I just photographs of the pile. This one is very sad. Before and after. But of course, this was before the one World Trade Center was built. So for a while, it was just empty. Dedicated to all the women behind the veil as they struggle for equality, freedom, and peace. In America, they fear for their safety. In Afghanistan, they are tortured by the Taliban. The struggle continues. So it looks like a mother and her child. Very beautiful eyes. I don't know, but in this photograph they look afraid, but I don't know if they're afraid or if they're surprised. I really don't know. But I just think it's very sad. All the stuff they probably had to go through. Photography is so powerful. Some pictures I can't even look at because it's just too much. Here's some images of the memorials that they created. It says, somebody wrote, "Why? Hope. World Trade Center, rest in peace," and candles and people with flowers lighting 7-day candles. A man whose relatives or loved ones are placing flowers around his missing poster. Just, oh my goodness. I don't know how long the memorials stayed up. Okay, here was another one. I'm almost there. There was one that really stood out to me. Okay, no. Because of the anger in the person's voice. So this was the boy, or not the boy. This was a firefighter. This was him. This was his missing poster. Because, you know, they don't know what happened to him if he was in the towers. And then this is from his sister. "Semper Fidelis, Christian, from your sister Christina." Christian Regenhard on his graduation day, FDNY Fire Academy, July 2001. Responded to the World Trade Center on September 11th. Artist, writer, humanitarian, U.S. Marine, and finally firefighter. Our grief is a call to action and a call for war on these murderers who want to take our loved ones and our way of life. I'm like, damn, that's pretty intense. Then I stood in the street with thousands of others, aghast as the buildings burned. The air felt thick with the experience of communal shock. Then, to our shared horror, the tower began collapsing. Chris Anderson. There are also photos of people's grief. They're just so empathetic. They connect with the people who are trapped there. They were just standing in the streets watching people die, and a lot of them couldn't take it. Some of them, they just hold their hand to their mouth. They couldn't make a sound. That's why you see this lady with her hand to her mouth, like she just can't believe it. And the irony is there's a sign next to her that says accent elimination. Call five sessions. Just all different people having the same reaction. Especially these two women, they're like holding on to each other. They don't know what else to do. Some people, like that guy I showed you earlier, just they couldn't look. They just curled up in fetal position on the ground. This shows. I think this is, I want to say this is a Marriott next to the towers, but I'm not sure because there were some buildings that were damaged when the attacks happened. I don't know which building that is. And there's another building that fell, Building 7. I literally don't know how that happened. Because it literally just fell straight down. Oh, so depressing. Then, our hearts are broken. Our hearts are broken. Their hearts are still broken. A piece of paper from the World Trade Center turned into an American flag. The view of the World Trade Center on the postcard is the same as everywhere. I found it in Brooklyn. Our flag was still there. He said the piece of paper was like an American flag. I was like, okay, I can see that. Another thing that they said was people were, covered in dust. They all looked the same. They were covered in dust. It was like a ghost. People walking like ghosts in the street. I wish I had a photograph of someone in dust, but I really don't. I have a photograph of cars in dust. Somebody said it looked like some type of winter, some type of nuclear fallout. Winter. This is a Muslim that was attacked. He got killed for being Muslim. But yeah, this concludes this photography book. Oh, this picture I thought was interesting because it looks like the silhouette of the statue is being attacked. The heat of the fire. And then these are all the people who were involved in the gallery, or almost all of them. They all came together in memory of the towers. So with this book, the September 11th photo by Magnum, this first page is actually a video. And I ended up seeing the video on YouTube. That's why I recognized it when it was posted. But it's one of the planes going into the tower. And the person was already filming. So these are stills from their video. And it went in so fast. Like, when I watched the video, I had to slow it down. Just like, it was very amazing detail. But when I say that was so fast, it was so fast. Anywhere it crashed, you wouldn't have had time to escape anyway. They probably were killed instantaneously. This photograph, I feel, is a very good description of the pile or the rubble. It's like one man in utter desolation. Look at all that they have to go through, all of the things that they have to clean up, all of the people trapped underneath, just the horrible discoveries they have to go through mentally as they clean up and try to move away from the tragedy. Some people couldn't handle the cleanup. There's another. What I like about this book is they have the photographers' names, whereas unlike the September 11th photo project, some of the people you know who they are because they left their information. Others, they don't have anything there. Whereas this one are professional photographers, so they have their information there, and I really like that. There's another photo somebody took. It's of a statue sitting in all of this. It's a statue as if nothing had happened. They're still working on their computer. Here's one photograph of somebody in dust, looking in disbelief that she just survived all of this stuff. And she probably just wants to go home. This guy with his look of shock. You know what's interesting? I didn't realize this until I started looking at a lot of footage over the course of like almost 2 months. Some of the clothing from September 11th, like it, or just from that year, I was like, gosh, this looks like 1991, but the 90s had just passed, so of course you'd still be dressing like the 90s or like late 80s firefighters. I don't trust words, I trust pictures. Gillis Paris. I don't trust words, I trust pictures. You know what? I trust pictures too, sometimes. The people coughing, covering their mouths. A lot of accounts that I've read said they were just coughing up everything. And they had to be put on breathing machines. Or they had to have their eyes sprayed out with water because everything was burning. When that great dust ball of heat and stuff came out, it was very hot. It had toxins in it. It had broken bits of glass and computer chips and all sorts of things in there. So people, when they see the cloud, they're just like, oh, okay, they're covered in dust. No, that dust was hot. And I feel like there was, from my recollection, from what I've read, I keep hearing the word tornado. So I don't know if it had this effect where it's like pulling people, like it was like a wind, where it just like pulled you and you had to hold on to something. But that's from what I've read in some accounts. Like they had to hold on to something so they wouldn't be blown away. Firefighter. He's in his own world. Well, I don't blame you. You probably lost half of your friends that day. This is a very powerful photograph. Who took this photograph? Gillis Paris. I'm sorry, I'm so tired. Right here is part of the airplane. I think it's an engine. Policeman behind a fragment from one of the airplane pieces. It too is covered in dust. And I'm trying to go through these photographs and not say much, but it's hard sometimes. This is a lady playing with her baby who's probably about 21 now. 21, 20, or no. Yeah, probably about 21. Playing with her baby with the tower in the back. And the baby oblivious to the fact that his or her entire world has changed. Very sad. Contrast of the happiness on signs. Kind of reminds me of that photograph where all of the people are waiting for food during the Great Depression, and they have a happy family on a billboard. This is what this reminds me of. How billboards will stay perpetually happy even though there's craziness going on around. I survived mode. They wrote this on the dust on the car. The city memorials. I feel this is one of the most beautiful images in this book. Even though it's very sad, just look at all of the beautiful colors and shapes. It's a candle vigil. People helping each other, holding each other. It's a beautiful photograph. And beautiful braids. Still wondering, how are we going to get all of this? The American flags. I told you I kept seeing flags everywhere. So if somebody says I'm crazy and that it didn't happen, here's a photograph to show you that I wasn't crazy. It says, God bless America. God bless America. Freedom will be defended. There were flags. More vigils. It's very hot. Wish I had a camera. This has a body on it, but the body in the coffin is Father Michael Judge. And Father Michael actually had a heart attack. It doesn't say this in this book. It actually talks about him in the fourth book I'm going to be book reviewing. But Father Michael Judge was the chaplain. He was like the fire department, the Catholic chaplain of the New York City Fire Department, and he was a friend to everyone, and he ended up dying of a heart attack on September 11th. So a lot of people came to visit his funeral because he had such a large impact on the lives of those around him. This photo. Support our troops. Let's see. I think this is a beautiful photograph too. Even though it's black and white, the solemn look on her face. This says, farewell to the towers. And they show at the end of the book old photographs of the towers throughout the years. If I had to choose which book of the two books that I liked better, I would say that the more emotional one was, of course, the September 11th photo project. I feel like that one was very, very personal. I also feel it had a more interesting collection of photography. This one, I feel, had better photography, skill-wise. This one had better photography skill-wise because, it was professional photographers. But it didn't keep me as interested as the September 11th photo project. But I think both books were very fantastic. And if you are a history buff, I would sincerely add them to your collection. And if you don't have any photography in your history collection, I think that you should add some, because photography is a good addition to a history curriculum. Sometimes you can't write it out. Sometimes you have to see it and feel it as you go about your research. So thank you everyone for watching this video, and look forward to part 3 of my 4-part video series. Happy reading and good evening.